hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So before we get on with today's episode, which is going to be another one of those cheap camera challenges, or more of a cheap camera test, I suppose you could say. Thanks for all the comments on the last video. I knew it was going to be quite controversial, talking about the fashion of street photography and how it looks. And I always expect a subject like that is always going to cause a little bit of sort of toing and froing, isn't it, to say the least. But obviously, if you're going to comment on that, you know, have some reasoned argument. You know, don't just swear at me. You know what I mean? But that's all part of the YouTube life, isn't it? Really, and what you do on YouTube. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I think it's very interesting, and it sort of fell into three camps, didn't it? Really, with people sort of, I think, understanding what I was trying to say. I wasn't potentially mocking the sort of fashion of it, but the sort of, it's not, that sort of side of it isn't really moving the street photography issue along, is it really? It's sort of like, it's not adding anything to the conversation as such. You sort of think, just shoot images and show people images and do that, rather than worrying too much what you look like on the image and the camera you've got and all the rest of it. But anyway, no, really interesting, and I like constructive comment. And what you'll find with me with comments, I tend to wait a couple of days, because that's when you get the bulk of your comments in, and then I'll reply, and I tend to reply relatively fully. I think I learned that from my motorbike channel, that it builds community, and that's what we're trying to do here, and getting your feedback and chat about it. But yeah, it's interesting, and I knew it was really quite controversial, that one, but we won't shy away from those subjects when I've got something to say. But there we are. The other thing that came out of that, very nice man Keith sent me his street images, which he took a few years ago, and he was critiqued by some other street photographers, and the feedback that he got, I thought, was pretty mean, actually. And so I'm going to use those images. So thanks for that, Keith. And I did ask Keith if I could do that. And I'm going to use those images in another episode, maybe next week's episode, where we look at images that have been taken by other people. And there's a couple of images that have been taken by my wife. He doesn't count himself as a photographer or anything, but that were taken on her phone, I think. And I think they're actually really lovely images. And I just think it's important to tell people, when you think they've got an eye, is to encourage people. You think, like, do you know what, you've got a damn good eye. You should do more of that. So that's what we do in that episode, probably. Anyway, back to today's episode. So another cheap camera challenge. So when I was in France the other week, the problem I had last time with that Coolpix, trying to find a flipping cheap camera now at boot fairs is really difficult. And while I was in France, you quite often find really good stuff. Look, the pigeons on the roof. You really find some really interesting cameras in France, and they seem to be much cheaper. There's not the same sort of buying public, I suppose. It's hard to explain. People aren't whizzing around the boot fairs in France buying up all the cheap cameras. So there's still a reasonably good selection, and that's film cameras and little digital. So I picked up 2 digital cameras while I was there, and the key thing is that they've always got to be cheap. So I got this little Coolpix, and when I saw this, they were actually both these cameras from the same seller, and I like these little Coolpix. They're really nice. This sort of flat. Now I remember I had back in the day. It was one of my very first little compact digital cameras, and it was cool. I'm sure it's called a Nikon S1, and I saw this and I thought, oh, because this is the S series, this is the S220, and I thought, oh, how cool. It was such a lovely little sort of top pocket camera, and I think it was even slimmer than this. It was a really lovely camera. I had no idea what happened to that. So I picked this one up, and this one cost me £8. So, but as with all these things, we don't know whether there's no means of charging it, all the rest of it. Sadly, when I got this one home, I tried to charge it. It charged up, and but it's defective. You switch it on, and the lens pops out, and it starts hunting. It's going as if it's trying to focus or do something. and then it just pops back in and gets this like error, lens error or something. So it's a real shame because it's in lovely condition. So something's happened with that. Not much I can do with that one. So that was a bit of a fail. The other camera I bought from the same seller, because I went back and I looked around the boot fair. Couldn't find anything I really wanted, but then the lady had this one, which is the slight aberration in the lens there, in the cupboard. So it was the Fujifilm XP. Now, from my research, I think this is the XP10. Now these came out in 2009, and I think it's still in production. They have different grades of waterproof, and all the rest of it. This has 3 meters waterproof, 1 meter shockproof. Unless you're sort of walking around, well, I suppose maybe it's hand height, isn't it? Maybe I was going to be disingenuous to it there. It'll shoot down to -10 degrees, and it's dustproof. But yeah, you can. It's 3 meters waterproof, and I think that some of these models are about 15 meters, 25 meters or something. So again, this one was £8. So I got the 2 cameras for £16 essentially, in euros terms anyway. Again, didn't know whether it worked. Got it back home, charged it up, and it works. So what we did, we last Sunday we nipped down to the Capel show, which is a little one of those sort of country shows, but it incorporates Capel's between Dorking and Horsham, and it's a really lovely show, and it's one of those real sort of local events. But they have a classic car show, an auto jumble, and have the motorbikes there. So I took this round, and I wanted to see what the image quality is like, because this is a 12 megapixel camera, and which is quite impressive really for the time. I'm sure it is 12 megapixels. I don't know if it says it on there or not. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm sure it's 12 megapixels. But it's a nice little camera. You got a Fujinon lens on there, and it's got a 5 optical zoom. Now the problem I have, what I was going to have with these cameras, and I don't know how I managed before, because you've got no viewfinder. Now obviously you've got the screen on the back, and if I turn that on, you've got the screen on the back. That's fine. But the problem is when you want to start taking images at odd angles and down, you either got to sort of lie down with it or do sorts of weird things like that. The screen's pretty clear, and it's quite a nice screen. But for me, if I'm not actually wearing my glasses, I'm wasting my time. I've got no chance at all. But what I did, when I go to little shows like that, I like to sort of play around and experiment a little bit, and we spent a little bit of time around the auto jumble. There wasn't a little auto jumble there for sale, but there was a fantastic amount of cars. And what was really nice, the cars were laid in groups, so you had a dozen Austin Healey's and Triumphs and Jaguars and all the rest of it. So I tried to get some interesting shots and see how I could do it with that. The problem was I couldn't really see the screen, so I'm sort of guessing slightly where I am and the width of the field of view, because or the angle of the lens, because it does have a wide and telephoto. You can zoom up with the 5-time optical zoom. I think the problem when you zoom, because they say it's an optical, but you tend to lose a little bit of the quality, I think. But the pictures I'm showing you, so I took pictures of the cars from sort of distance, and I was incorporating. Remember, I had the episode where I did the Cartier-Bresson when it was getting angles from one corner of the frame to the other, and I was trying to work that. That's quite difficult to do. It's not an easy process to follow. So I have even more respect for Bresson in doing that. But I tried that in a few different things, and I show you the ones with the cars where I was trying to put them to lead the eye along, from one corner of the frame to the, say from I was tending to do from the bottom left to the top right. And to me, I think it does make a difference. It splits the screen slightly, and it just gives it a bit more nicer flow to it. And I don't know whether I used to do that subconsciously, but now I'm trying to do it consciously. It's actually quite a difficult thing to do. Well, I find it quite difficult, particularly when you're trying to do this and you can't quite see what's going on. So I then tried to do some more close-up stuff. The camera turns on pretty quick, I suppose, and you got that little blip blip noise, and you know as soon as that comes up, you know you're sort of ready to shoot. What I did find with this camera though is that you would get an issue with the flash, and was quite common, you know, with some of these small pocket cameras, that the flash would automatically cut in, if you like, and you'd sometimes you get a flash go off, sometimes you didn't, because it affected the exposure. And I'm not a great lover using flash, even fill-in flash, because I see the problem with fill-in flash and stuff like that is that you see the image that you want, and then you're going to get it overexposed. And I tend to find these things overexposed when they put that fill-in flash in there, and it's not what you're seeing. So it's sort of like, used to have. I had said this about the. It was the Olympus Miju 35, the really nice small one, which didn't look that dissimilar to this film camera. That camera, even though it was highly rated, I mean, it was, people were paying silly money for it, which I never pretty understood. It was a nuisance because the flipping fill-in flash would always work, and it was like, oh, you had to keep turning it off. Anyway, so some of the car shots, what I did with the car shots, I did wide shots, and then I quite like getting close in on cars which are very stylish and specific, and when you know when you can just see specific parts of a car, you know exactly what it is. You just see a headlight or a form of the wing or something. And I did that with a couple with the Citroens, which are great. Those Citroen DSs, aren't they? Superb cars. So I tried that, and that seemed to work. And I think the actual sharpness and they're not over sharp, so you get a nice. I don't like using this thing, this filmic quality, but you get a nice softer image, which is has a bit more style and character to it, if that makes sense. And I think that's what I like about using some of these early digital cameras. They weren't. Oh, I think the thing is they weren't over processed in the camera, and I think that's what I like. I think that's probably what it is. It's that lack of over processing in the camera, which I prefer, and I think that's what I'm finding with these older digital SLRs. They're not over processed. You've only got a fine amount of information which you're recording, and it's using it quite wisely. I don't know what people think about that. If that maybe that's the thing. I also used it inside the tent, so I was taking some images of, and you're seeing them here. Some images of like this. It's that classic sort of country fair type thing where you get the biggest marrow and the tomatoes, the prettiest tomato and all that sort of stuff. But it's great, isn't it? Because you get a real sense of community from those things, and they're a really good thing if you're going to do. And I'm going to talk about this in another episode about doing projects, and it's a good way to teach yourself or discipline yourself about how to shoot certain things that you don't have to. You're not doing hundreds of things at once. You're just picking a particular thing, and those country fairs are great because you can do things like, the people of the fair, the activities of a fair and stuff like that. You can have a really good mix of images, but they've got a similar theme. And what I tend to do is think, how would I, if I was writing a little booklet or something to demonstrate what a country fair is about, try and shoot that. And I think that would be a really interesting way of doing things. So I got the tomatoes and the I don't know what some of these things were. A little thing. There was a little image of a flower. I took 2 shots of this flower. The first one I took I didn't quite like, but it was like a dog rose. It was a type of rose, but I'm going to say it was a dog rose going back to my gardening days. And it looked really sad. It was a really warm day as usual we've had. But this little thing was sitting in a vase, and it had sat there obviously all day and getting a bit hot, and it looked quite sad. I just thought the flower looked sad, even though it won first prize. And I like that sort of thing, that that's the thing you have to sort of look in your mind. You see something that you want to photograph and think that, why does that appeal to me? What's that telling me? And from that, it was a sad flower, even though it had won. But in terms of how the little Fuji XP worked, it was okay. It was, for me though, it was just the screen. At my time of life and my eyesight, I'm sort of wasting my time looking at screens. That's why I always have to look through the viewfinder. And whenever I look for small cameras, I just like a viewfinder. And that was interesting because the other Coolpix that I had, the earlier one, had a viewfinder, because we were still thinking in terms of film cameras when they were being manufactured, and manufacturers said, "Oh, well, I don't need to put a viewfinder in there because we've got the screen." But unless your eyesight's great, it makes screens difficult. So there was this, and we still have this now with a lot of the, so I suppose, bridge cameras or whatever you want to call them, but they don't have a viewfinder as such. You just have a screen. Now I know you have the sort of tilt out screens and stuff like that, but to me it's not the same thing. I always think the tilt out screens are reminiscent of these twin lens reflexes, where you're looking down on them like that, which is great. And I will get this out and shoot this because my chemical has arrived to develop some film. So I do plan to do that imminently, absolutely imminently. But yeah, so cheap camera challenge. Do I think it was better than the Coolpix that I got before? Yes, in terms of the image quality, in terms, I suppose, of its sharpness and all the rest of it. It's more than double the pixel, maybe 3 times the pixel. I can't remember what that Coolpix was now. It wasn't a lot, was it? But usability, the other Coolpix was better. For my kind of, it's okay to slip in a bag or something. It's just an emergency camera, but I think the advantage of the other camera was that it had the viewfinder, had the easier to use short zoom, because you had the little toggle on here that you could zoom up. And it's something that other people have mentioned in that last video that I did about the street photography fashion, talking about, why have a prime lens when you can have a short zoom. I totally agree with that. A short zoom, I think, is better than a prime lens. I really do, for street photography anyway. It's just more versatile, and you don't lose any image quality. You really don't. Not today's modern cameras. But yeah, the XP. So shame about the other Coolpix. That was a real shame, that. But the XP, yeah, it's okay. It's alright. It's still a current camera. It's even got a tripod socket. It's funny, isn't it, what we put on stuff in it? You think, well, what do you want to? Who the hell's ever going to put this on a tripod? But I suppose they do. But yeah, it's okay. It's got a nice weight to it. It feels quite a quality item. It's got a nice sturdy weight to it. The XP. Be interested to know anybody else's thoughts on the XP. But yeah, that was my cheap camera challenge for this week. And I'll do some more. When I find something else, I'll do some more. But I should do some film ones next, But other episodes I'm planning is I'm going to do a comparison between the OM1 film camera and the OMD, and how similar they are actually to use. But yeah, that may be the episode after I do the other people's shots that they send me. So please send me your shots. If you want me to send me some of your street shots, in the first instance, we might do some other types of photography, but send me your street shots. 1 or 2 images, that's fine. Just send me 1 or 2 images. The email address is in the description, Candid Photographer. So do that, because I really appreciate it. And I will email you back. So thanks to Keith for that as well. But there we are. Cheap Camera Challenge 2. The Fujifilm XP. Not bad. Not my kind of camera, but not bad. Needs a viewfinder. But other than that, it's really good. Cool bit of kit. Right. Hope you enjoyed that. Keep the comments coming. Whatever they are, I will reply. I won't be rude back. I'll be constructive, which you need to be. Be constructive with your criticism or comments. It's much easier than swearing. So there you go. Right, take care. Happy snapping, and I'll see you in the next episode. Look after yourselves.